Okay, we are on some part 30 or something like that. I'm not really too sure. So we're starting here from Eusebius, just like we did in the last part where we left off. And just looking at the page, like right off the bat, I can tell this is already getting into some of the information that many of us are well aware of. So this is from Eusebius. The first man, according to the Egyptians, was Hephaestus, who was the inventor of fire. Interesting. From him descended the sun, after whom Agathodamon, after whom Cronus, then Osiris. So it's Hephaestus, Helios, Cronus, Osiris. Then Typhon, the brother of Osiris, after whom was Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis. These were the first Egyptian kings. Okay, so just kind of shifting gears a little bit back. Let me look up. So basically the Egyptian canon that we have today, I think, denotes Typhon as Seth. Let me double check that. I'm pretty sure because that's the brother of Osiris. So we're gonna ask, is the brother of Osiris named Typhon or Seth? Or both, depending on the context. Or later? No. Or no, oracle? Depending on the context. I'll just put context. I don't think context is the right word. Okay. Fascinating convergence of mythologies and the evolution of religious thought. Most direct answer from Egyptian mythology is Set, also known as Seth or Sutek. He's the god of storms, chaos, desert, and foreigners. The core of the famous Osiris myth involves Set jealousy and murder of his own brother Osiris. Set's the sage. The throne of the Egyptian, the struggle for the Egyptian throne. The name Typhon, however, is not a name from Egyptian mythology itself. Instead, it comes from Greek mythology, where Typhon is a monstrous serpentine giant and the father of many famous monsters. The connection between Set and Typhon arises from the process of interpollatio Graecia, which is the ancient Greek practice of equating foreign deities with their own. Okay. As the Greeks and Romans came into contact with Egyptian culture, they saw parallels between the destructive, chaotic nature of the god Set and their own monster Typhon. This identification became especially prominent in later Ptolemaic and Roman periods in Egyptian history, as the cult of Osiris became more dominant and Set's character increasingly demonized. Okay. So I'm correct in discerning that both names are used, but the context is crucial. Got it. Okay, so I kind of already knew that Typhon was part of the, and Cronus as well. I forgot who the father we now know of Osiris, I think, is Ptah. And it's interesting that they don't have, so they have the name Agathodamon, but Ptah is, I think now it's accepted as, it is Ptah, but in this book they're saying it's Cronus. So I wonder. It's really curious to me why they don't have the correct name for Typhon. Why? So I'm kind of really curious actually now. So why doesn't Eusebius? Is that how I spell his name? I think it's an E. Yeah, it's Eusebius. Eusebius. Why doesn't have the Egyptian name for Typhon or mention it? and also the father of Osiris, which is Ptah. Eusebius uses Cronus. When Eusebius, now I think I don't know. I don't know why they don't have the names. Like they have the names Osiris and Horus, but they don't have Ptah and they don't have Set. Did they not have their original names? What's going on here? That's actually really curious for me, honestly. Okay, let me expand this a little bit. Yada-dee-dee-da, we already know who Eusebius is. He was a Greco-Roman historian. Okay, so Eusebius's works, especially his Preparatio Evangelica, preparation for the gospel, were aimed at Greek-speaking educated audience. To them, Egyptian gods were not simply foreign, but were understood through the lens of Greek mythology, yada yada yada. Therefore, naming Osiris his brother Typhon instead of Set and his father Cronus instead of Geb or Ptah was a way to... No, this is not a good answer. Readers would instantly recognize the roles of these figures. Typhon as a destructive, chaotic force, and Cronus as the ancient, deposed father figure. Okay, so it says Eusebius was an Egyptologist as a Christian apologist. By using the Greek names and interpretations, he could better argue that pagan mythologies were... But see, this doesn't explain the identification of Set and Typhon was well established, but I don't know, something's telling me that like Eusebius didn't have these names, because wouldn't he have used, like, I don't know, Zeus as Osiris or something like that? Something's not right here. Like, something's so not right there. Let me see what the... Okay, so yeah, they use Sol. They don't use Helios. That's interesting. They use the sun. Like the actual... What the hell? So this must be some sort of Latin. Oh, what the heck? Okay, so he did it in Latin. He's Greco-Roman, but he's using Greek names for these things. But he's also... It doesn't make sense why he's using... So, okay, so... Something tells me that Eusebius didn't have the names Ptah or Typhon, because he would have possibly equated Zeus with Osiris, but then based on your context, or I guess on your conclusions, I'll say, let's see here. It would be assumed that Eusebius made clear separation between Osiris and Zeus, but don't you think that Eusebius would have also explicitly noted Typhon to be set and Cronus to be Ptah somewhere. I have not seen it in these texts. I'm just kind of. I know it's a little bit of a. That last sentence is a little bit of a bluff, but I want to see what it's gonna say. So, okay, this is kind of a lot to go over. I think we're gonna end up spending a lot of time on this. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how well you can see what I'm seeing right now. So Eusebius mentions Typhon or Cronus. He's not inventing a new equation. He's quoting or drawing from pre-existing so we already know that. Typhon is set. The identification of Set with Typhon was already well established in the Hellenistic period, particularly in the works of Plutarch's De Ise et Osiridae, a text Eusebius would have known. The association was based on their shared destructive chaotic nature. Okay, so that's fair. I know he's doing that. Or it could be argued that he's doing that. Why didn't he explicitly note it? You're right that he doesn't explicitly write Typhon as what the Egyptians call Set because he didn't have to. For his audience, that was already common knowledge. The use of the Greek name was I don't know. This is kind of a. I'm gonna have to argue with this here. I don't know. I mean, you can say I'm not very well versed in Greco-Roman history, however you want. You know what I mean? Like I don't have the cultural context of this of these texts. Meaning, like I don't know what he's assuming the author does and doesn't know, so to speak, based on like their culture at the time. But me looking at this as somebody who would have picked this up thousands of years later, I don't know. I think this tells me that this because he right here denotes that there's another name for Cronus, which is agathodaimon, and then he also says that they use the word soul and not Helios. So they would have used Helios for the sun, but in this, and right here in the original Latin, he's using the word soul, which is a completely different word for Helios, as far as I know. I don't know. I just know they're different words. But he's using Hephaestus. He doesn't note any other names for Hephaestus, but I don't know. It's very curious to me. I think it's fair for anyone to argue that Zeus and Osiris are completely different figures, so to speak. But then to just kind of like say that like Typhon and then not use Set because I mean the AI is saying right here that Set. They knew the name. They knew of the name Set, but in these texts they haven't used it. It's kind of the same thing where, how I said in the beginning of this book when we started looking into it, where, you're not gonna find anywhere in this entire book the word Sumerian or the culture of Sumerian because that word wasn't used in the 1800s and before that. That word Sumerian wasn't used until the 1940s when they discovered Ashurbanipal's library and started putting all these texts together. And then they started saying like, hey, there's an older language than the Akkad. The Akkad cuneiform that's been used all over the generations into the Babylonian empires, into the Assyrian empires, and even the later generation empires until they start using what's called Aramaic. Aramaic is the language that comes out about the time of the Romans. In the Middle Eastern lands is basically the successor to the Akkadian language. So them like not explicitly denoting the name for Ptah or Typhon kind of makes me assume that they don't know it, and the AI is kind of like making this. It's using this academic rhetoric here that he already knew, but they just didn't want to use it, which I think is kind of, it's, personally, I feel it to be kind of important to add it. I don't know. Obviously, here they're using different names, and earlier in this book they used different names for different things and have denoted that, hey, these are different names for the same person. So why is it in here they're only using Typhon and they're not using Set? Here they're using Cronus, and they haven't once mentioned the name Ptah. Like, nowhere in these texts are they mentioning that. But the AI is arguing here that one of Eusebius's contemporaries, Plutarch, in his works, they say at Osiride, that has the explicit connection between Typhon and Set. I guess I'd look into that, but I just think it's really weird when they don't mention things. You always gotta pay attention, like I've said plenty times before. You gotta pay attention to what they're saying and what they're also not saying in these books. Because, sometimes you'll find something that maybe was either covered up or not looked at. Because, like I said, this is how the Popol Vuh was found. It was that those texts. The Popol Vuh was a bunch of texts written by like an early conquistador soldier that recorded the legends of like ancient the ancient what are they called? Are they the Mayans? It's like the ancient Guatemalan cultures. And he made this book, and this book was sitting in a library for like 200 years until I think some French guy named Francisco Pizarro or something like that came to that library, found that book, and then said, "Hey, how come you guys don't use this?" And they were like, "Oh, we didn't know that book was there." It's the same thing where some of these books have information on it, which is very curious to me. Also, I was reading that I haven't used it in a while, but I just started using it now that I'm starting classes. That Library Genesis has been completely shut down. Like they're trying to shut off all the domains for Library Genesis, which is it's a shadow library, so it's like doing pirating downloads for books and stuff like that. But they want you to do it in an academic sort of way. But the problem with that is that leads to like tampering of information. Anybody can easily like abuse or tamper the information and filter out books that aren't important. That's not good. We should always have these shadow libraries, and I don't care how illegal someone may think it is. I think it's fair. I don't think we should be hiding information anymore and leaving it up to people who quote unquote make information and they gotta quote unquote capitalize off of it. I don't find that to be fair, and I know we live in a system that is very capitalistic, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all gotta survive. And if we're not helping each other out, we're just degenerating. So that's why I make these videos, so other people can see these ideas and have open discussion, understanding of these things that people were trying to say before us that aren't being said now. So I think we'll kind of like come back in from that deep dive. That was really curious for me. Like I said, I haven't seen the name Ptah or Set once in this book, but maybe it's in the footer or something. We'll like double check. I don't know. Maybe I did miss it. I could do like a Control F, maybe look for it or something. But let's continue. So after whom was Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis. These were the first Egyptian kings. After them, the empire descended by a long succession to Baites through a lapse of 13,900 years, reckoned, I say, in lunar years of 30 days to each. For even now they call the month a year. I don't know. I think he's just trying to I think he's just trying to make this like more of a human kind of like ordeal. I don't know. Very strange. Depends on whether these guys are stoic or not. Alright, let's read this footer. This passage in the Armenian is between parentheses and in what we might call italics. Has it been interpolated or omitted? I have replaced the true names from the Armenian. Outre has given them Vulcanus, Saturnus, etc. And that's referring to the footer for this one, Ecathodemon, so the name for a Gethodemon, right? I don't know. Might not be important, but it's interesting to me that the Armenians have all this information about like Egypt and the Middle East and everything like that. Like it's all in Armenia. The post-Macedonian or classical Greeks, they were always battling with the Persians for the Armenian throne. It's very curious to me. A lot of people overlook that or don't think of that as anything, but recent discoveries show that some of the oldest sites that have been considered like megalithic or like very ancient are all in Turkey and very, very close to Armenia. So much so that it's even like said in the Bible that Noah landed on like Mount Ararat, right? So that's like in Armenia, right there. So I mean, legends be told, it could very well be a very, very, very important area. That's why they have Armenian texts that refer to all these Greek and Egyptian gods and whatnot. And it's like, how do they know all that? It's like they collected all the information there. Where do we go? Okay, so after the gods, a race of demigods reigned 1255 years. Then reigned other kings 1817 years. After them, 30 Memphite kings 1790. Okay. Now, which one is Menes part of? 1790. Then 10 Thinite kings, 350 years. Then came the kingdoms of Manes and demigods, 5,813. The number of years altogether amounts to 11,000, which also are lunar years. That is to say, months. So 11,000 months. Why is it assumed that they're using lunar years? Okay, well, all the lunar years which the Egyptians allowed to the reigns of the gods, the demigods, and the Manes are 24,900. Okay, so these are denoting all the legendary kings. See, like, I'm trying to denote whether or not Menes is like part of the whole legendary dynasties or not. Because the name Narmer, so they found that in Lower Egypt they found what is it called, like tablets of like the first unifier of Egypt, which was Narmer, and then those had like there was like a relief that had a Narmer, or what was denoted as like Narmer, which was a unifier of Egypt, and also there at the top of the tablet, I could look it up actually. Let me look that up. Give you guys there's some symbology on it, and the symbology is supposed to be Hathor, which is a really ancient Egyptian god that I guess is supposed to like predate. I don't know. And like, and it's also curious to me that like Hathor is like not even mentioned in any of these books either, or like a super goddess, because Hathor is a goddess. It's the turquoise goddess. She's like the goddess of like mines, and she's like depicted as like a cow. Let me see. So normal tablet. I'm gonna look this up real quick and give you guys a quick picture of the tablet. Very interesting, honestly. I think it is really. Let me see if I can open this in Open image in new tab. Does this do it justice? Hell yeah. Alright, sweet. Let's check it out. Okay. So here is the goddess Hathor. You can tell by the cow ears and the bull horns. Below this is supposed to be, I think, Narmer, the unifier of Egypt, and he's depicted with the southern crown of Egypt, I think. Or not the southern crown, the lower crown of Egypt. And I think the upper crown is the elongated skull, which might be that one. Yeah, I haven't really dug into this too much, but this is pretty much it. This is Hathor, like one of the most ancient goddesses, and then this is supposed to be like Narmer. I think this is the right tablet. Let me